Hi, Marcy. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi, Zinnia.
Oh, and I'm waiting. I'm going to make Claudia a panelist. 1 second. Hi, Claudia.
Hello, good evening. Thank you.
Good evening. Give me 1 second. I'm having some issues setting up the interpreters.
Hey, how's it going?
Hello there. Is this Josh Phelps?
This is Josh.
Nice
How are
to
you?
meet you, Josh.
You as
Welcome.
well. Thank you.
And if I can have Chris and Josh, please put your turn off your cameras and put set your microphone to mute until the item comes up. That would be appreciated. Thank you.
About when do you think that might be?
You're the only item.
Okay,
So
gotcha.
shortly.
Okay.
Mhm.
Cool, thanks.
Sure, Pont, we are ready to start the meeting.
Thank you, Zinnia. Good evening. Welcome to the regular Tuesday, August 17th, 2021 meeting of the St. Helena Planning Commission. There's a paragraph I need to read here covering the ability to hold these remote meetings before we get started. In accordance with Executive Order N29-20 and guidance from the California Department of Public Health on gatherings, remote public participation is allowed. We will address the order in the following ways. Members of the public may not physically attend meetings. The Planning Commission meeting will be live streamed on Comcast Channel 28 and on the city's website, barring technical difficulties. Those members of the public wishing to participate must do so remotely via Zoom electronic meetings in the following ways. Either by logging on to the Zoom link located on the meeting agenda, please download the app to your computer or mobile device and enter the meeting ID, or by calling a listed number and enter the meeting ID. Public comment for planning commission meetings will be accepted via email to publiccomment@cityofsthelena.org. All public comments must be emailed by 4 p.m. prior to the meeting. Emailed public comments will not be read out loud, but will be publicly available and attached to the online planning commission agenda. Ms. Gamero, you have some more information for us. You're on mute, Ms. Gamero.
Thank you, Chair Pont. Let me pull up this presentation here. Members of the public that wish to participate in public comments by phone, you can do so by dialing 669-900-6833. At the prompt, you can enter the meeting ID 861-4864-6661. You can press pound, and during the public comments, you can press *9 to speak. Additionally, tonight's meeting will have live Spanish interpretation. To access the interpretation, you will need to use the Zoom application from either your cell phone, tablet, or computer. Instructions on how to use the Zoom app are listed in English and Spanish on the agenda posted on the city's website. Once you join the meeting from the Zoom application, you will see a small globe at the bottom or top of the screen. You can click on the globe and you will be able to access the live interpretation. We have Marcy and Claudia who are our interpreters this evening. And that will be all, Chair Pont.
Thank you. Commissioner Rothfeld, would you mind leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Ms. Gamero, will you take the roll, please?
Thank you, Chair Pont. Commissioner Anderson,
Here.
Commissioner Rothfeld,
Here.
Commissioner Segura,
Here.
Vice Chair Hale,
Here.
and Chair Pont.
Here. Thank you. That takes us to item 3, public forum. This is the opportunity for members of the public to address the commission on items that are not on the agenda. Because of restrictions imposed by the Brown Act, the commission may not engage in discussion nor take action on matters not described on the agenda. Ms. Gamero, is there anyone who appears to wish to speak?
At the moment, there are no members of the public wishing to speak.
Okay. There are no consent items tonight. So that takes us down to public hearings. We have one this evening. Request 5.1, request by Chris Phelps of Chris Phelps Wines, LLC, for adoption of a resolution approving a use permit to allow wine tasting by appointment at the Wine Administrative Office located at 1400 Oak Street Avenue, Suite B in the Central Business Zoning District. Staff report, please.
Yes, I will be presenting the staff report this evening, Chair Pont.
Thank you.
So Chris Phelps Wines is a small family-owned winery that produces less than 500 cases of wine annually in the Napa Valley. Josh Phelps, who is the applicant's son, currently subleases the office space from the current tenant for administrative offices for his own wine company, and will continue to sublease the space when Chris Phelps Wines becomes the new tenant. Ancillary to the wine office, Chris Phelps would like to self-host tastings by appointment only. They're seeking approval of a use permit in order to host these tastings and conduct their day-to-day wine operations. The appointment-only tastings would be hosted 7 days a week from 10 to 6 p.m. and the number of visitors would be limited to 8 seats per tasting with a maximum of 12 visitors per day. Operation for the administration office would be Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, and the maximum number of people working in the office at any given time would be 4. Wines that adhere to the 75% rule for the Napa Valley appellations are permitted to be poured during the tasting appointments. According to the Finance and Utilities Department, the existing building has a historical water use average of approximately 310 gallons per day, far below the 600 GDP maximum. A condition of approval has been added requiring that the 600 GDP wastewater generation maximum be maintained. Regarding the parking, the site is located within the downtown and the parking impact overlay. Therefore, the parking standards for such were applied for the parking calculations, which are outlined in the staff report. The arrangement as part of this use permit will not generate new parking impacts. Staff finds that the project requests of adding wine tastings for up to 8 guests with an existing office space meets and complies with the required findings to approve a use permit for the proposed project. Staff has not identified any outstanding issues related to this application. And as of the completion of this report, staff has received 8 letters of support related to this application. One letter of support actually just came in to my email about an hour ago, so I was not able to distribute that in time, just so you are aware. For the reasons described above, staff recommends that the Planning Commission determine that the project is exempt from the requirements of CEQA pursuant to CEQA guidelines section 15301 and accept the required findings and approve a resolution granting use permit approval for the wine tasting uses in the building located at 1400 Oak Avenue, Suite B. And I did want to point out for Planning Commission consideration that although staff considers the tasting room as ancillary use throughout the staff report, ultimately it is the Planning Commission who decides what it is interpreted as the ancillary use. Therefore, staff has 3 options that I would like to present to you, so the Planning Commission could maybe consider those when thinking about what the ancillary use for this specific use would be. So 1, the office is the ancillary use based on the tasting room being open 7 days a week and the office 5 days a week. 2, the tasting room is the ancillary use based on the floor plan, which indicates that there will remain an office presence in the space as noted in the application. And the 3rd option is staff recommends the Planning Commission consider the tasting room as ancillary, given that there will be limited appointments for tasting, while the office use may occur on a continuous basis on weekdays. Irrespective of the interpretation, there is not a new need for parking generated. And that concurs my presentation, Chair Ponce, and I'm available for any questions.
Are there any questions of staff? I don't see any hands. I do have a question, but I want to precede it by a statement. I mean, we're in the process of rewriting our zoning code. And I think this kind of application points out one of the flaws I hope will repair, or actually 2 potential flaws. The first is, like Ms. Gamero said, our code doesn't point at which use is ancillary to the other. That's commission choice. But it seems to me it'd be wise at some point to actually, like other uses, it's pretty clear what's ancillary and what's not. Pool in the backyard of the house, well, the pool is ancillary to the house. But this, where you have 2 uses that could stand on their own 2 feet, as it were, that could, depending on where they go, actually require a permit for each one. It would be nice if in our code we included some way of making a determination, at least at the staff level, which is ancillary to the other, so they don't have to bump that up to us from time to time and say which is which, and we can come out with something that's consistent. The second thing is on this one again, is because once again we have two two uses that are tied, if you will. Parking is also, to me, a question. In that, should it be additive? And I would think that's a question the code would want to answer as it proceeds. So they are indeed questions of staff, but mostly in terms of putting them on the list, I hope, Director DeRosa, as we move forward with the rewrite of the zoning code, which is ancillary to which, and can we develop a set of at least rules of thumb where you get uses like this that are essentially stand on their own, which is ancillary to the other. And how do we make that determination? And the second one, like I said, is parking. Should where you have uses like this where they are standalone uses, come up with some formula for parking that isn't simply one or the other, which is what we've got now in our code. If I understand it correctly, please correct me if I'm wrong. But there should be some sort of additive formula that somehow adds to the lowest one, adds to the highest one. I don't know, but looks at them as other than a use that won't generate any additional parking needs, when it clearly does. Anyway, I don't know if those are questions or simply pontificating from the chair, but that was a pun, by the way. But I think this is the kind of project that leads well to that, because frankly, from my point of view, this is a small project. I think if we had a straw vote, I would vote yes, but it's the place to practice on.
If I may, Chair Pond, I appreciate you bringing up these comments and for your information and the benefit of the commission. This is the beauty of actually still taking projects through while you're in the middle of a code rewrite. I have forwarded those two issues that you brought up today already to Lisa Wise, knowing that we didn't have really clear guidance in the code. And so we are expecting to have much more clarity as it relates to how we define ancillary uses, and also the sharing of uses in a singular space, and how do you begin to calculate the parking with that unique situation. So yes, these are things to, if you're keeping a running list, you can add those to the list because they're on mine. Thank
Great.
you.
I'd like to assure the applicant we're not picking on you. It's just that you're a perfect example of these questions while we run through our new zoning code. Any more questions of staff on this? No. Then I would like to invite the applicant to testify if they care to. Mr. Phelps.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Chris Phelps, the applicant. And mainly, I just want to thank staff, city staff, and chair, co-chair, and the commissioners for taking time and helping me along. I especially want to thank Zinnia because I knew nothing about this process. There wasn't sort of a checklist. If you're rewriting the code, you might think about a checklist for a new applicant. Because I was really lost, and now I've been found, and Zinnia's really was a lot of hand-holding. So thank you, Zinnia. And I think my written statement really sort of sums it up. I'm ready for any questions, but I don't particularly have any statement to make further.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Phelps from the commission?
Just one clarification. Now,
Certainly.
the entrance to the tasting room is totally independent of the entrance to the coffee shop, right?
Correct.
It's between the travel agency and the coffee shop.
Yes, there's only one door to the street, and it's the one. There's only one way to get in. And
Okay.
it's from Oak. It's from the door we have on Oak.
Okay.
It's completely, the bathrooms are independent, because that question came up during the process. We have a small, a restroom, and that's completely independent of the roasting company's restroom.
Okay. And so that little space is enough to accommodate your 8 visitors or?
Absolutely. Yeah, the
Okay.
way we envision it, and we call it incidental use for tasting. We have very, very limited ability at the moment, but because of the way alcohol licenses work, to host people. So this is really, it's become a crucial factor in our business continuing. And I think I speak for a lot of small wine producers.
Okay. Well, that's good to hear, because, I'm thinking every time I walk into that coffee shop, the wonderful smells follow me outside, and I'm going, is that going to hinder his tastings, and how are his tasters going to be able to appreciate the aromas and the taste and everything independent of the coffee? So I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Mr. Phelps from the commission? Hearing none. At this point, I'd like to offer any public testimony out there. Is there any member of the public who wishes to speak either for or against this project? Ms. Gamero, do we have anybody who apparently wishes to testify?
There are no members of the public, Chair Pont, that wish to speak.
All right. Then if there's no other questions and no members of the public wishing to speak, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for discussion. Is there anyone who has something to say about this project or the approach to the project? I don't.
Now, if we approve this is it's approved and nothing can be changed. Since we're going through a zoning code that we approve, and that's approved for, or do we do a temporary approval, or?
No, it would be a permanent change to the allowances for that piece of property. Until we actually change the code. We are working under the old code as long as the parts we're working under do not directly conflict with the new general plan. Sort of an odd space here. If I'm getting this right, Director DeRosa, we've got a new general plan, which is the controlling document, but the code under which we work cannot be in conflict with the general plan. So we're in a little spot right here. But I don't believe, and staff I'm sure would have told us if there was any problem here with the code concerning this conflicting with the new general plan. Did I get that right?
Yeah, there's no conflict with this project in the currently new adopted general plan.
Okay, good.
So no, this is a permanent change. Oh, yes, Commissioner Anderson.
I don't have any issues with this use permit. I think that it's really reasonable and it's a good space for it. I do have concerns about the incremental effects of approving all of the wine tasting use permits that we've allowed recently. There's nothing about how many we can issue before it becomes an issue where we have an imbalance in town of tasting rooms. I mean, I want storefronts filled as much as the next person, but I feel like we could at some point reach a tipping point where we have too many.
I would certainly agree with that, but I'm not sure that we're there yet.
No, and I don't think
I don't know how to measure that either.
But I feel like we should have something in writing before it gets to that point.
Any other? Yes, Vice Chair Hale.
I mean, I think the ongoing challenge will be to observe, notice that when it happens and react to it. I don't know that you're going to be able to put in code or some tipping point or some objective. This is too many. I think there will be the weight of witnessing that when it happens, and I think it would be appropriate to deal with it then. I think there's, taking John's comments. I think a lot of those concerns are valid. I kind of disagree that we practice on an applicant. I think we're sort of, our challenge is to deal with the code that we have, and then as best as we can deal with the applications that come in. I think there are some thorny points in our code, and I'm glad that we kind of have a running list. I'd really like to take this as a just further weight to get this code process moving for us, so we can start to react to some of the new pieces of code that we're anticipating, so that we can hopefully in the future deal with these with less or with more clarity, so that there isn't kind of a open-ended or less open-ended approach. But I think this application seems pretty straightforward to me. I think in terms of tasting rooms and talking about spaces, I think we do a town a good service when we tuck them in, kind of like this one does. And we've done, I think most of the ones that we've done have been sort of tucked around the bend, tucked down an alley, have probably less demonstrative impact on the streetscape, the kind of commercial strip. I'd rather see commercial spaces fill those, and I think it would be, I hope that happens. But I think in the meantime, seeding kind of some of the outskirts with some of these types of businesses that are, offices with the ability to do tasting, also bring valuable people to town, and who will enable some of those storefronts to actually thrive, and possibly encourage people to actually engage in those leases. I think it's a subtle sort of uplift of the economic ecosystem here, which I think is a good thing. So, I think our local, enabling our local businesses to thrive and reach a piece of the market, the kind of direct to consumer market as one facet of their business makes good sense, and is a good use of some of these spaces. So.
I suppose I must apologize to both Vice Chair Hale and the applicant, Mr. Phelps, if it seemed like I wanted to take this application apart in any way. No, that was not the intent. It was simply that this is an excellent example of the problem I brought up with our current zoning code. And not that that would impact this project in particular, but that it's a good example of our old and very, if I will, holy zoning code. And this is one of the holes that bless you too, that need to be repaired. Then, like I did say, I wasn't. If we had a straw vote, I would vote in favor of this project, and I'm hoping soon we'll have a real vote. And I also must agree with Commissioner Anderson and Commissioner Hale. I also have concerns about how much is too much, but right now I don't have a good way to assess how much is too much. But we will find that point. hope we don't find that point as it zips past us, that we're able to meter our approach. At any rate, any more concerns about this application at all? No. Before we get on any further, I'm going to ask Ms. Gamero, is there, once again, anyone in the public who wishes to speak on this item?
Let me check. There are no members of the public that wish to speak, Chair.
Thank you. Doing this on Zoom is a bit odd. You can't really tell what the dickens is going out there. With that, a motion would be appropriate if one of the commissioners cares to make a motion.
I would like to move to approve the resolution to approve the applicant's application for the tasting room with the condition that the water limits be respectful of.
Okay.
Can I jump in here? That is one of the conditions already, so I don't think it's, I just point of order, I guess. It's already, it is a condition, so I don't think we, I mean, by approving it as it is, it has that condition in it.
If you move to adopt the resolution, that condition is contained within the resolution.
Yes.
So you already
You
said.
are more than welcome to just read off staff's recommendation, Commissioner.
Yes.
With that condition is already included in the resolution.
She did say adopt. Okay. If I got it, that Commissioner Segura did say adopt the resolution, which contains all the conditions, including the one on water. And we also need to say something about the project is exempt from CEQA. If Commissioner Segura would mind adding that to her motion.
I will add to my motion that the project complies with all the CEQA requirements.
Okay, and so we have a motion on the board. Do we have a second?
Second, but again, I'm just trying to get this so it's super correct, because it's exempt from the requirements of CEQA. That's what we're finding.
And that's correct, but I think it's a fine, in some ways, a fine distinction. The exemption is written into CEQA law as an exemption. So you're meeting CEQA law if you have an exemption, which is a little odd, but the exemptions are actually part of the statute.
Right.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? No. Ms. Camaro, will you tally the votes, please?
Commissioner Segura,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hale,
Yes.
Commissioner Rothfeld,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
and Chair Pont.
Yes. Thank you. That concludes this item. That takes us to scheduled matters. We do not have any, which takes us to department reports. Director DeRosa, do you have anything for the good of the order tonight?
I do. It looks like we will be having a meeting in 2 weeks. I do have a staff report in my queue to review this week. So stay tuned for an agenda to be published. Just a quick update on Farmstead. We actually have finished reviewing the grading permit. It's actually ready to issue. The only contingencies that we're waiting for is the applicant is supposed to submit a species report and put up construction fencing. And once he's completed those items, expect some activity out there. Let's see. And then the Hunter project, I know I give you periodic updates on this. It is on the City Council agenda for September 14th at 6 o'clock for a brief presentation. Again, we won't be talking about the EIR. It's just more to update the community and the council about the project and how it's evolved over the years and what their current proposal is. The draft inclusionary housing study report findings have been submitted to myself and the city attorney. There's a number of revisions, so I don't know if we're going to make a joint meeting with the Planning Commission, the council in September. That may get pushed out to the following month, but I'll keep you updated as things progress on that. I'm sorry. Okay, and those are my updates for this this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. That takes us to agenda forecast, which is the time for any member of the commission to request that a future item be put on the agenda. Do I hear anything? Do not. So for members of the public, a list of all current planning projects is available on our city website, which takes us to item 9, which is adjournment. And we're adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you,
you all.
commissioners. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Good night, good evening.